Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to have you for our fifth in the present webinar in our series of webinars for students. So thank you for making the time to join us. I know some of you are still writing. Hi, let's try that again. Welcome to everyone joining us on our webinar today. We're really excited to speak to you about secondments, and at a time where we aren't able to travel very much, it's great to be able to talk about travels and to get excited for when we are able to again. So welcome and thank you for joining us. So just to introduce you to a bit more about BDO, if you don't know much about us. This is from our recent transparency report, and it just shows you that BDO is a global company. We've got a presence in 160 different countries, so you're going to hear about some of them today and what it's like to work across the world. We're the fifth largest professional services firm in the world, and we've got over 88,000 people working for BDO around the world in different countries. So it's really exciting to be able to share some of that information with you today. And as you can see from the graphs at the bottom of the slide, we are predominantly an audit-focused business, but there's a lot of growth in our other sectors as well. So we'll be able to maybe talk to you about that on other webinars at a later stage. But today, like we said, we're going to be chatting about secondments. And so I'm really lucky to have 5 amazing speakers who are going to share their experiences with us. So we've got Palesa, we've got Adam, Sims, Hermine, and Bianca, who all traveled on secondment at different stages in their careers and to different parts of the world. And so they're going to be talking to us a little bit more about secondments. One thing to just note before we get into the meat of the presentation, you'll see that there's a Q&A chat box on your right-hand side. Please feel free to ask questions at any point throughout the webinar, and right at the end we'll have a Q&A session where we'll get the presenters to answer any questions that you do have. So please communicate with us via the Q&A tool. All right, so first up, we are going to be chatting to Adam. And Adam, you're going to talk to us a bit about location, but before we get into that, I want to hear from you a little bit more about you. So where you studied, what your current role is, and maybe a bit about your interests outside of work. Sorry, Adam, if you can just unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute you, but it doesn't seem to work. Thanks.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. Hi, everybody. So just a bit about me. I'm a partner or director in the Johannesburg office. I studied at Wits, but quite a while ago compared to some of my colleagues. I did my studying, I started in 2009 and finished in that's the last, started in 2004, sorry, and finished in 2009, and then started articles 2009. I came from the original Grant Thornton route. I'm not sure how much you guys kept up to date with the mergers and stuff that have happened over the last couple of years, but I've been through a few in my time already, and so now happily with BDO. And I initially did my secondment with the old Grant Thornton office. It works a very similar way with BDO now. I went to New York or Manhattan, and was specifically based out of the Manhattan office in Midtown, which was very cool. I did an 18-month secondment, which is a long-term one. If you want to talk about long-term secondments, I'm a big advocate for that. But I think both have their merits in terms of the benefits for each one. And yeah, it's probably going to come a little bit later in the presentation where we talk about the long and short term. A little bit about me outside of audit. Obviously, it's work and it takes a big time of my day, but I quite enjoy endurance events. I was supposed to do my first Comrades this year. Obviously that didn't happen, so hopefully next year things have returned to normal a little bit. But I've done a couple of triathlons over the last couple of years, and I find that's quite a good way of balancing your life between work and something outside of work where you can turn your brain off and just kind of, tick along like normal. Yeah, I think, Cindy, anything else?
One last thing I wanted to ask you about. You're about to make another long-term commitment in getting married. And how's that planning going, and everything getting a little hectic, I'm sure, with the COVID situation and planning?
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting process. There's been some tears and that sort of stuff over the last little bit as we're trying to figure out what's going on. And so, I mean, our original date was end of October, which is potentially looking unlikely. So we pushing everything out and trying to make plans and sort it out for next year. and then hoping things will kind of return to normal, at least in a time when we can get married the way we plan to get married. I don't think either of us are keen to have people up there with masks and whatever else trying to do the ceremony. So we're gonna push it all out and hope for the best for at some stage in the first 6 months of next year.
Awesome. So I'm going to move over to your slides. So yeah, take it from here and tell us a bit about your location, where to go.
Yeah, perfect. So the way I've done the slide is, I mean, you can see I put a couple of questions up there that I know when I was looking for secondment opportunities and I wasn't quite sure what my opportunities were or where I could go. And I sat down and I thought about it quite hard to myself, and there were certain things I wanted to get out of secondment, and there were lots of places that I wanted to see. It was very hard to narrow down the list, and I struggled in the end to come up with where I wanted to go, just because of the opportunities that I had. And that was back with Grant Thornton. It's very similar with BDO. So you'll see Cindy mentioned a little bit earlier that we represented in 167 countries, and there's a staff contingent of 88,000+ or something along those lines. So it is a massive organization. When you're talking about where BDO is represented worldwide, it's in every major city. I've listed, obviously, very briefly on the left-hand side there, maybe you're right, depending on how the slides are presented. Exactly some of the big hubs, and all the major hubs are represented. I mean, there's New York, London, Sydney, anywhere along California, throughout Europe. So your options really are limitless. And when you look at the question, where can I go? Generally, you can apply to go to any of the firms around the world. And what would normally happen is there'd be firms that specifically say, yes, we have capacity and we are taking on X number of people. Or if you have a niche interest or there's somewhere where you specifically want to go, you can apply individually to that firm. So as much as it's where can I go, the question also is where do you want to go, or where should you go? When saying where should you go, again, I'll talk about my own experience and the kind of things that I thought about, and then there's maybe some other questions you can ask yourself that will also help you in terms of deciding where you'd like to go. The first thing is probably, it depends on what you want to get out of secondment. So, I mean, a lot of people, when thinking about it, they say it's an opportunity for them to travel and see the world, and I think that's a very good way of looking at it. And if your interest is traveling and you're interested in Europe, I mean, considering a place like London is probably one of the best choices you can make. You have access to Europe. I mean, anything in Europe is probably about a 2-hour flight from London. You're traveling on pounds, so it makes your life a lot easier. Just to put it into context, my fiance, so she spent 5 years in London with another firm, and I realized 5 years is a long time. But we went on holiday last year together, and we wanted to pick a place that neither of us had been. And it excluded so much of the world because of the time she spent in London that we wound up going off to Cuba, which is pretty off the beaten track. But the point of that is just to think that you do have really good opportunity to travel in and around London in the time that you're there, or kind of the rest of Europe. Some people also they want to use it as a means to immigrate, and it's a very good stepping stone to do that, because you are moving across into a very good job, obviously with a decent salary, and you can start your life overseas. So if that is your intention and people do know about it, then now's a good time to get started. Another thing to think about, I mean, some people, you'll probably hear a little bit later on the call, and they want to experience an island life, and guys spend some time in the Caymans or the Bahamas. And really, I'm not sure if the work chills out a lot, but your life kind of chills out in terms of you do and you can embrace that island life. I mean, I've got a friend that is working in Hawaii, and every weekend on Facebook I see how he's gone spearfishing in these turquoise oceans, and so I mean that's also something that's really cool to think about. And then I think another thing to ask yourself is, where your friends going, or where do you have family, where do you have a base? There's a lot to be said about personal relationships. And when I went to secondment, I went by myself. I didn't know a soul in New York, and New York is a very daunting city when it wants to be. And having that base, especially initially, makes your life a lot easier. When you guys start articles, you're going to make new friends. You're obviously going to keep old friends. And if there's an opportunity where guys can go together and, you know, you can go to a country or a city together, that does really give you a different experience. If you're by yourself, it just takes a little bit longer to kind of build up that base and get a bit of an easier lifestyle going. So I think that's also an important thing to think about. And then some popular choices that we've had over the last couple of years, London and the States are always the two most popular choices. And I think kind of the things that I've spoken about now. So, you know, London's it's a massive hub, and it's a good experience to live in London. And then it also opens up travel opportunities. And then a lot of people also go to the States just because, I mean, again, the States is quite an alluring prospect for a lot of people because it's, you know, it's the bright lights of Hollywood and New York City, and it's stuff that's relevant to us because we spend our life in almost American media a lot of the time. So again, now when I watch a movie and I see New York and I'm like, yeah, I had breakfast at that place, or I remember walking up this aisle, and it's just really, really cool because it is relevant. Amsterdam now is also becoming quite popular, and Rotterdam up in the Netherlands, and I think people there, they believe that you get a good work-life balance with the Dutch culture and how they do things. So that's picking up in terms of popularity, and then also just some of the islands and the island lifestyles that people want to experience. So there's always one or two people going off to the Caymans or the Bahamas or something like that at the end of their articles. But really, I mean, it's a cliche statement, but the world is your oyster, and it really is a great opportunity for you guys to be able to get out there somewhere in the world, whatever your niche is or whatever your interest is. I'm pretty sure there's a BDO office that we're able to support that.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just looking at your photos and I was about to say it looks like a TV show, and it is, you know, like we're so accustomed to seeing the States on our media, on our, you know, shows that we watch, our series. So it must have been quite surreal walking down those streets and feeling like you were, you know, in a scene from Friends.
No, it was amazing. I think maybe the one thing that I will say that surprised me was how small the Statue of Liberty was. I always expected this thing to be a skyscraper, and it's a lot smaller than you expect.
Sure.
But, yeah, didn't detract from it being cool, obviously.
Interesting. No, very cool. Thank you. Yeah, so next up, I mean, another big favorite for a lot of our secondees is the UK and London specifically. And so Sims, who's going to chat to us next, spent some of her time in her career there. But Sims, just before we get onto that, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just wanted to find out a bit more about you. So first of all, I want to ask you where you studied your undergrad, but you've also been studying more recently. Tell us about that and how it's been balancing everything.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Afternoon, everyone. So yeah, my name is Sims Mahlangu. I'm a senior manager in the audit division at BDO Johannesburg. I manage medium to also JSE listed clients in various sectors. So I specialize in manufacturing, REIT properties, as well as insurance. So yeah, I studied at UJ. I started my studies in BLES 100. So I did my undergrad there. I did my CTA there, and as well as now I'm working on my master's there as well. Remote working, sure. And remote studying, it was quite a challenge, I must be honest. The director from UJ was very clear as soon as the pandemic hit that all contact sessions would be cancelled, and it brought a lot of anxiety to me because at home I felt a bit disconnected with the lectures. So what really helped me was to be a bit more prepared. So we had a schedule that was given to us to say what lectures are coming up. So it really reduced my anxiety by making sure that I do a bit more research, and I feel more connected with the lecturer if I did something before the actual online learning. Another thing, Cindy, that really gave me a bit of fright with this online learning was consistency. So it was easy for me to be consistent because I knew I had lectures at 6. So I'd go to campus at 6 o'clock, attend the lecture until 8, and then I'd go to the library and study. But now all of that was like gone, and the onus was on me. So I really took it upon myself to set up a timetable. I thought that was really important, just to make sure that I don't fall off track, because this was my last 6 months. So I didn't want all my hard work to go to waste. So it was very important for me to develop a timetable, stick to it. And yeah, I wrote my final exams in June and I passed. So good story.
Congrats. That's amazing. So now you have your master's masters too. Sure, that's really great. Well done. And yeah, I think you're right. It's good advice for all the students who are now finding themselves remote learning, even if that wasn't what they had intended at the beginning of the year. So yeah, and you're going to be talking to us a bit more about personal growth and how you grew during your secondment. So I'm going to move over and let you take it from there.
All right, thank you. So I went to the UK. It was straight after my article. So I completed my 3 years and then I went over to the UK on secondment. For me, it was a big shift because this was my first time overseas. I'd never had the opportunity beforehand. But what I really learned is I learned how to sort of do well in an unfamiliar environment because I was away from family. I didn't go with anyone that I knew. And as well as it was the first time where I felt that my training wheels had come off because went through varsity, went through articles, was in a training contract. Now these training wheels are off and I'm actually soaring. So that was the first time I felt as if the training wheels had come off. It was a really good experience. The CA qualification is also a very well recognized qualification overseas, and I got to experience that because people were willing to listen to you. You got really nice clients. So I really liked that. It reaffirmed my career choice. So that really helped. I was also open to a lot of challenges that came for me. Being a rookie with traveling overseas, I arrived in the UK, but my bags didn't. and I didn't have like a small bag or anything because I didn't know that was what people do. So here I am running around trying to get clothes for work. There's a lot of support that I got from the office in London, but just so that people know, you're still in the audit environment and you're still going to work on site. So I was predominantly in the London office, but I also got to travel to Essex for clients, also got to travel to Birmingham. So that was also quite nice. And in terms of personal growth, what I want people to know is that this CA journey is not a journey you take alone. I mean, you take it with your family as well. And as you can see in the top right-hand corner, my mom came to visit me. It was also her first time overseas. So it was a really good experience to be able to share that with her as well. So yeah, that was my experience. I did a 6-month secondment. I knew on the onset that I didn't want to be there for the long term. I just felt that I really needed that experience overseas. I needed to get away from family. I needed to experience what the rest of the world was like. So I was very comfortable with my 6 months, offered to stay on for longer, and I proudly declined, looking forward to come back to Johannesburg. So yeah, that was my secondment experience. And in terms of personal growth, I definitely advise people to do it as well.
Awesome. And Sims, how amazing. It seems to be such like Murphy's Law when it's your first time traveling, your bag gets lost. It's almost like it's like initiation or something. Crazy. And it looks like from your photos, you were there for some winter months and some summer months. How did you handle the cold winters in the UK?
So I arrived in January. Sure. I remember getting out of the airport, that small walk to the taxi, I froze. The first time I had a bit of snow hit my face. So I arrived right in the middle of winter, right in the middle of busy season. And then what I did was I banked all my leave because I knew my mom was coming towards the end. So as soon as summer hits around June, July, I had banked all my leave and then got to do some traveling around the whole of UK. Then I got to experience summer as well, but I was on my leave by then, which was quite nice. So that's what I did.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you so much. It was great hearing your story. So next up is Hermine, who is from our Port Elizabeth office. I'm just going to get you up there quickly. And Hermine, I think you're probably the most recent one to return from secondment. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So I got back on June 1st. So I've been back in the country for just over a month and a half, which has been great to be back. I was in Tampa, Florida for 24 months, for a 24-month contract with them.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you also did it a little differently in that you went over with your family. So I want to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yes. So initially, when the advertisement for the secondment came in, I was very excited because I've been looking into doing a secondment since basically the end of my articles, but the timing just wasn't right at that stage. So go 2 years back, there comes the advertisement for Tampa, Florida, and I'm like, yo, I'm keen to go. So I told the partner there, you know, my husband, I've got a 3-year-old, then 1.5-year-old, you know, how does that work? So he was like, you know, they come with, like, there was no issue. They organized the visas and everything for them as well. So I was very fortunate in that they could come with without any, you know, any issues. Yeah, with them coming over.
So before we hear more about your secondment, I also just want to hear a bit about the PE office, because we haven't yet had a presenter on any of our webinars from PE. So maybe tell us a little bit about your office, the types of clients you work on, and just give PE a little advert here.
Amazing office to work with. I love the PE office. So we've got a variety of clients. We've got a couple of construction companies. We've got real estate companies, some of them listed. We've got your normal retail and manufacturing companies. We've got a couple of attorneys, you know, on the attorney side as well. So we've got a great variety of clients that you get to deal with and get exposed to in your course of articles and after that as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I lived in PE for a good 6 or 7 years, so I can attest to the fact it's a great place to live.
It is, yeah.
Awesome. So Hadwin, you're going to chat to us a bit more about career growth. So I'll get onto your slide now and hand over to you.
Yes. Also, when the secondment came, I was a manager already with BDO, and then we actually just merged with BDO from Grant Thornton. So I've been with the same partners since the start of my articles, but now with BDO specifically early 2018. So I was initially a bit nervous to go because here I am manager, the CA qualification at that stage is not recognized in the States. So I technically had to go back to being a 3rd year, or, you know, those terms, experienced senior. And I was a bit nervous because it was, you know, not going to be the manager type of work, but actually, you know, looking back, and even, you know, just when I started there as an experienced senior, it was actually such a great opportunity at that stage because I had the basis, you know, already, the good foundation of auditing, and because I've been in it, but now going back from a manager to a 3rd year, it was just really grounding that knowledge again, and having now the background, I can actually understand, you know, now you actually understand the things that go on in your clients, and now you know what to ask. So it was really, even though I was nervous, it was, I think the best thing that could have happened was going back into those 2 years, kind of laying in another foundation, a more in-depth foundation with, you know, the standards and your clients. So I was nervous in that, but I think it was a great thing that could happen. But now also, in saying that, so the psycho equivalent in America is AICPA, and they now have come into an agreement or mutual recognition that the CA qualification can also now be recognized in the States, and the vice versa, so the CPA qualification in South Africa. So that's a very, very recent thing that happened. So I think, you know, even if you're at how many ever years after articles, there's still going to be that opportunity for you to go, I think, and it's not going to be a step back in your career, because now that's a mutually recognized designation. Yeah, so career growth, it was incredible, really. The things you learn, I truly enjoyed the 2 years. It was really an amazing experience. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it's good to have you home. Sometimes people go for 2 years and then decide to stay and never come back.
So good to be back.
It's awesome that you chose to come back. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. All right. So next up, we're going to chat to Palesa. Let me get you on the screen quickly, Palesa. So Palesa is from our Cape Town office, so someone that I know well. And yeah, Palesa, maybe just quickly unmute yourself and tell us, where did you study? And you started out in Johannesburg and then moved to Cape Town. You saw the light.
Thanks, Cindy. So yes, I'm currently a partner director in the Cape Town audit division. I've been with BDO since 2012, and like Cindy said, I started out in Johannesburg. I did my articles there, and then I subsequently relocated to Cape Town 4 years ago. My undergrad, I studied at Wits University. I started in 2009, and then I did my postgrad at Monash.
Awesome. And Phyllis, I feel like I know you a little bit, but maybe tell me or tell us something that you don't think that we know about you. Something interesting about you.
I think something people don't know about me, and I think the students can relate more to this. I actually did my CTA 5 times. Sure. It was a tough journey. You know, I was questioning whether it's for me. You know, you have this dark cloud hanging over you. And just thinking maybe I should just give up, you know. And on the final attempt, I finally made it. But I mean, just a word of advice to the students, you know, I know it's not easy. I know it's a tough road, but, you know, don't give up. I'm a living testament of that, I suppose. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, so often, you know, in interviews, we'll speak to students who are struggling academically and they really just need motivation and encouragement. So that's amazing. And look at you now, you're a partner in our firm and yeah, you've overcome all those struggles. So that's great. And you're going to speak to us about travel. So you went to a different country to everyone else. So I'm going to hand over to you now and move across to your slide.
Thank you. So I went on a short-term secondment to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I was there for 6 months. I actually left South Africa in January, so it was still winter when I got there. And by the time I was coming back, it was spring. So I mean, I got to experience the best and worst of it. I mean, I got to see some snow and I got to go ice skating. And I also got to pick some tulips in the flower fields, you know, so I got to see the different seasons, as they say in the Netherlands. But I think for me, the biggest factor why I chose to go into secondment was the traveling. And the reason why I chose Amsterdam was because of its central location to Europe. You know, it's easily accessible to go to other cities, whether it's a flight or whether you're driving. I think for me, that was the biggest factor. It was my first time overseas. So yeah, it was quite daunting at first. But I think eventually you get the hang of it. So my personal experience, I was obviously based in Amsterdam, but I mean, from traveling wise, I went to other cities within the Netherlands. So like Rotterdam, Gieten, Lisse, but I also managed to travel to 8 other countries. So I went to Spain, I went to Portugal, I went to Greece, Prague, Czech Republic, Germany, Belgium, France, and I also went to the UK. And a lot of the travel I did solo, and some of it I did with friends. When I went to the UK for the first time, that was actually for work because we had a client there. And then I subsequently returned to the UK for leisure. So for me, I think the biggest concerns obviously was 1, traveling solo, also being a woman, like from a safety point of view as well. 2, it was the costs that come with traveling, and 3, also just finding the time to travel, you know. So I think from a traveling solo point of view, I mean, had you asked me a year or 2 before whether I'd ever travel solo to a different country, the answer would have definitely been no. But I must say, I went out of my comfort zone, and it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made because you learn so much about yourself. You know, it's a personal experience that nobody can take away from you, and you don't have to worry about other people. You know, you do what you want to do. So yeah, I enjoyed the traveling solo, and from a safety point of view, I think. Look, with anywhere you go in the world, you know, one needs to always be careful, one needs to be vigilant. Also do your research, you know, some places are not safe, some places are safer than others. But I must say that at no point did I ever feel unsafe, ever. So I had no bad experiences in terms of any of the countries I visited. But again, like I said, always be vigilant. And then just in terms of the costs that come with traveling. So traveling can be expensive, but what I did find is that being based in Europe, it was so easy to travel to neighboring countries because either there was a very, very cheap flight or I could just hop into the car and drive to Germany, drive to Belgium, drive to France. So that was a cheaper option. I mean, also in terms of accommodation, we do have cheap alternatives such as Airbnb, for example. So the travel doesn't necessarily always have to be expensive. And also, before you go on your secondment, you can also try and save up, which is something I did do. So you do at least have some spending money in case you do wanna travel. And then I think the last thing was just finding the time to travel, because obviously you're there for work. So when do you find the time to travel? I found that being in Amsterdam, there was a good work-life balance, luckily. So, I mean, most weekends I could easily hop onto an hour or 2-hour flight to another country or make a long weekend of it. But also towards the end, I did save up some of my leave and I was able to travel to Greece, travel to Spain. So, I mean, you learn to manage your time and travel to the places that you really do want to go to. But I think for me, I mean, the experience brought about building different relationships with the people that you meet, you know, learning about different places, seeing different places, different cultures. And it's just an experience, honestly, nobody can take away from you. And I must say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So on my slides, what I've shared is just some of the places that I've visited. And I think for me, the reason I also chose Europe is because I enjoy sightseeing. You know, I enjoy the culture, I enjoy the history. So on my slides, I've added just a picture of some of the places I went to where there was something I've never seen before, or something different for you to see. So for example, in Brussels, I went to the Atomium, which is a structure that is about 100 meters tall, and you go into the structure and you see all of Brussels. That was really cool. When I went to Greece, you get to see all the archaeological sites. That was really cool. And then obviously Paris. I didn't want to put up a picture of the Eiffel Tower because I thought that would be very cliched, but I did go there as well. And another cool place I went to was Disneyland in Paris for my birthday. So yeah, I mean, the opportunities are endless. And obviously depending on the type of travel you want to do or what you want to get out of your travel will also depend on where you go on secondment. But yeah, I think the most important thing is make the most of it, have fun, and just always be safe.
Awesome. Yeah, your photos look like you had the most amazing time. And like Adam said earlier, the Netherlands office actually come out to South Africa once a year. I think they like coming here for a holiday, but they say that they're recruiting, but they're just the most lovely people, and they bring us stroopwafels, which if you've never tasted before, you've got to have. So yeah. I
brought my family some when I came back, so they're amazing. Yeah,
they're great. So thank you so much, Palesa. That was awesome to hear your stories. And next up, Bianca is going to just explain to us how it all sort of works, because there's obviously a lot of moving parts and a lot of different things to consider. So before we get into your presentation, Bianca, I want to hear a little bit from you in terms of your background, your current role, and the move that you are sort of in the middle of making.
Thanks, Cindy. Afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be able to be on this platform and just share a bit of my experience. But just something about me, well, I'm an audit manager in the financial services division. I currently specialize in regulatory and compliance, specifically in the banking industry. Let's start at the university side. Did my undergrad at Stellenbosch University, started in 2011. Also did a bit of the garden route, had to redo a year or two. So then I finished my undergrad at Stellenbosch, and then I moved on to do my honours through Monash, like Palesa, in 2017. And then, yeah, started my articles with BDO in 2015, was in the Cape Town office, and just recently moved to the Johannesburg office, moved over officially from the 1st of March, but with COVID and everything, I'm currently still in Cape Town. But yeah, really enjoying it, and yeah, been a great learning experience so far with BDO. Absolutely love it.
I like that, the garden route. I've never heard it explained like that. It just shows, you know, it's not a detour, it's just part of the route.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Bianca, tell us where you went to secondment, and then just share with us a bit about your experience as to how it all works.
Sure. Okay, so I went to Miami, Florida. It was really, really amazing. What made me choose Miami was there's two South Africans that were a year ahead of me in the Cape Town office, and they both based there, I think permanently now. They were first on an 18-month contract and they've extended, and they reached out and they just said, listen, we're looking for people. Are you keen to help out on a short-term secondment? Always wanted to do secondment. I thought America was pretty cool, never been there before, and something different. I always heard people refer to US GAAP, you know, different accounting framework. So I thought it would be a nice learning experience from a personal and a career point of view. I flew over, I think I landed there the 22nd of Jan last year, 2019. I was there from Jan to April. And then after that, I traveled for 2 weeks, did Disney World, did Vegas, and yeah, it was absolutely amazing. But just some of the logistics, I've just taken a few points down because there's so much to actually remember. But so basically I was still on a BDO South Africa contract, so you're still under South African labour law and the same leave rules apply, etc. I flew over in Jan. As we arrived at the airport, we had this fancy limo type chauffeur that came to collect us, which was really cool, and took us to our apartments in Miami. We stayed at a place called Monarch and Met, and yeah, indoor pool, indoor gym, you name it. It was absolutely amazing. I didn't go on my own. I went with someone that completed articles with me, which was quite nice. So at least I had a familiar face with me, and I knew the 2 other people in the office on that side. So yeah, they paid for accommodation. We got a daily allowance of $50, which is really, really more than enough. I was able to save quite a bit of that and use that to travel afterwards. I mean, just to put in perspective, I think your average McDonald's meal comes to around $9, $10. So it really is more than enough. They paid it out every 2 weeks. So we got it on the 15th and then the 30th, worked out to about $600 every time. Any expense claims that we might have had, like Ubering to the client, etc., we just put an expense claim through on our system, and it got paid out pretty quickly. Interesting enough, we had to get a social security number in order to open an American bank account, and that's how they paid our daily allowance out. And yeah, then the visa application fee we had to cover when we were in South Africa. I think that worked out to about $160, and then they just reimbursed us when we got back to, well, when we got to America, they reimbursed us with that fee. And then I'm just trying to think of some other stuff that I've missed out on. They also gave us the opportunity to hire a car, which was quite nice. I decided to opt out of that one because they drive on the other side of the road. So I was just worried, you know, I wasn't too sure if they had all the insurance in place. I thought, let me not, you know, cause any more drama for anyone. So decided to rather Uber, which was quite nice. And then, yeah, just flights. So I had to cover my own flights when I went there. But to be very honest, I mean, you really can't put a price tag on an experience like this. It was just really, really amazing. I'd recommend it to anyone. And yeah, just I can't say enough good things about the experience. Just to talk to my slides, so the 2 other girls you see in the picture, those were 2 other friends of mine that did secondment in Philadelphia. I flew up to them for 1 weekend, myself and the girl in the middle. We actually just got our APC results, which was quite nice. We got our APC results, I think, on the Friday. It was 9 o'clock in the morning in America, so it was a big anticlimax to go to work and not be able to celebrate with a glass of champers, but nonetheless, flew to Philly the next day and celebrated there. They also flew to Miami for a weekend, went to the Miami Open, which was really cool. And yeah, I mean, Miami was just, I think, you know, we talk America and we talk Europe. To be very honest, it almost felt like I was in Europe because everyone speaks Spanish there. So it was quite weird seeing like the American flag and then you hear people speaking Spanish in the background. But yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. And I made some really good friends along the way. I actually still talk to a few of them in the office on that side. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. I love your reference to the McDonald's currency. It helps put everything in perspective for us. It's awesome. And Bianca, you're also just going to tell us a little bit about Britt, who's actually a friend of yours, who relocated with BDO permanently to the Cayman Islands. And a lot of people don't know that it's always an option. You can also do that. You don't just have to go on a secondment and return. You can stay permanently. Do you want to just share with us a bit about Britt's experience?
Sure. So I was quite lucky. Miami is about an hour flight away from Cayman. So I went there one weekend, also met up with some people that I finished articles with. Absolutely amazing. Definitely the island lifestyle. I think it's literally, my Brit in the picture says, it's no makeup, hair in a bun, costume weekends, it's boat parties, you name it. It really is a good lifestyle. I mean, it's in summer, it gets really, really, really hot. But I mean, I don't even think any of them own a jacket, to be honest. It's all slip slops, shorts, skirts, you name it. So yeah, Brit moved over on an 18-month contract. You can also do that in America as well. They give you a relocation allowance, and actually when you get there, they put you up in a hotel for 2 weeks, which is quite nice, just to find your feet and to find accommodation permanently. I actually had a call with her last week, and yeah, she is just absolutely loving it. Lots of South African in the Caymans, which is nice. And I think what's quite nice, it's a very close-knit community. So you really do, I mean, I see some friends that I was in varsity with, she's now friends with, because, there's South Africans and Caymans. So I think it's quite nice that it's quite a close-knit community. You don't feel alone. And yeah, she also said absolutely amazing. Not missing home yet. She said she's still on still riding the wave of just, new experience and everything like that. But yeah, she definitely said she'd recommend Caymans, and just being there personally, I definitely think I'm more a city type person. So for me, a weekend was nice. And I think the whole island, I could be wrong, but I think it's about 7 miles long. So it's and they call it 7 Mile Beach. So it's very small, but yeah, also an amazing opportunity.
Awesome. I actually have some friends that went on secondment to Bermuda and never came back. It was like the Bermuda Triangle thing. But it's also weird to see they wear those things called Bermuda shorts to work. So they're like, you go to work in shorts, which is such a weird concept to me. But yeah, it's definitely that island lifestyle, and they love it as well. So thank you, Bianca, for sharing both of those stories. So we've had a couple of questions and comments that have come through. So I know Sim's typed out an answer to the one, but the question was for Sim, saying, what did you specialize in for your master's and why that choice? So Sims, I don't know if you want to just speak to that question so that everyone else can hear the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I decided to study further, I really looked for something that will help me in my career, because I know that I want to stay in audit. So I definitely looked for something that would assist me with that. I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with IT, and not having an IT background, because I studied accounting, I didn't have an IT background. It was very important for me to get a course or a master's course that also involved coursework. So I needed to engage with lecturers, I needed to do assignments, I needed to have exams, just so that I can learn a bit more about IT. And then also, obviously, master's comes with a thesis. So my master's of choice was master's in computer audit. And the reason for that was just to make sure that I pioneer myself to be able to audit in the future.
Awesome, thanks. Uba King said, this is so inspiring. Yes, I hope so. I hope that we've been able to, make you just see that, yes, you're putting in the hard work now and you're putting in a lot of hours, but there's such exciting opportunities that await you. So it is really all worth it. Pam says, I really want to do Australia. How do I go about that? So yeah, BDO is represented in Australia. We've got offices throughout Australia. So Adam, I don't know if you want to chat to that, but it would be pretty much the same process, I think, if you want to just talk to that.
Yeah, pretty much. So Pam, Cindy's right. There are BDO offices all over Australia. Sydney, Melbourne and Perth are probably the 3 most popular destinations in terms of people going across on secondment there. The process to go to Australia is exactly the same as any other location. When you finish when you're finishing your articles, so probably if your articles is due to end in December or January from about, I suppose, July, August or so, obviously currently it's a little bit different with COVID, the secondment will start opening up and offices will start being in touch around the world to say, A, where there is capacity and where they need secondees, or B, where if you're specifically interested in going to an office and you apply directly. That process normally starts around this time generally. And then from there, you just be in touch with the relevant people at the offices through our office liaisons, and then they'll start setting up the process for secondment there. If there is capacity, you'll normally go through an interview process with the, let's just say, the Sydney office for example's sake. You'll go through an interview process there with some of their partners and their training officers, their HR. If your secondment is then accepted and your application is accepted, they'll then take you through the entire visa process and get you across Australia for secondment, depending on the length you want to go for, and etc. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you for answering that. Yeah, BDO's actually got this portal on our website called BDO Connect, where us as HR people can also log in and find all the contact details for all the secondment people throughout the world. So it's quite nice. We can also, you know, sometimes people come to me and they say they want to go to, I don't know, the BVI, British Virgin Islands. I had to go Google where that was on a map, but we can find it. We can find the people and put you in contact with them. So yeah, there are some obscure little islands and places that people want to go. So guys, I wanted to ask you just one or two questions that I get asked by students often, and they haven't come through on the live Q&A, but maybe people are thinking them and haven't typed them out. But what clients did you get exposed to over there? Were there any interesting or high-profile clients? And I suppose as a part two to that question, did you feel that the exposure and the types of clients you had worked on here had equipped you to know what you were doing there? I don't know who wants to take that one. Adam?
I'm happy to answer that. So I spent 18 months in Manhattan, like I said. The New York offices at that stage were split into like financial services, normal, commercial. So I was in the commercial office, and probably two of the biggest clients I did, I mean, if you go Google, it's a company called ICANN Charter Enterprises, and he's a squillionaire in the States, and it's a massive enterprise. It was probably at that stage Grant Thornton, but it was one of Grant Thornton's biggest clients internationally. I worked on that, and then I worked on another client called First Quality. They supplied kind of Walmart and all these massive chain stores with kind of hygiene products and tissue paper and all that sort of, and they had factories all over the States. So I went around all of the states, and at that stage it was something silly like they were the biggest private company within US borders or something. So two really big companies. I had another couple around the city that were very different. I audited an online university. What was quite cool about that was they let you bring your pets to work. So all the office staff came with their pets, and they had a dog bed next to their desk that their dog sat on, and then at 10 o'clock they all went for a walk, and at 2 o'clock they all went for a walk. So that was pretty cool. I did a school up in the Bronx. I audited a school up there that was part of this ICANN enterprise. Basically what happened with that was this guy's wife said to him that she's bored and she'd like a project. So he started this school for like it's called a charter school, which is a bit strange, but basically started the school that people could apply to and go to, and she ran the school as his charity project. So I did get quite a lot of exposure to a lot of different clients. In terms of the South African CA, as Hadmin spoke about a little bit earlier, at that stage the CA wasn't really recognized in America as part of the CPA process, but the information and the studying we do here, it actually really puts you in good stead for what you get that side. There are some small differences between US GAAP and IFRS. It's easy enough to pick up on it, but the education we get here and university experience and article experience we get here really does set you up nicely for overseas. Not once did I feel out of my depth with anything, and that's how I couldn't deal with it based on my training. So yes, I was very comfortable that side with the work that came to me.
Awesome. I don't know if anyone else wants to share experiences that they had at clients. Palesa, I don't know if you had to do a lot of football unions, because I know that's big in the Netherlands.
No, but I mean, what I wanted to add on to what Adam said, I mean, you know, studying in SA definitely does prepare you, because I feel audit is audit, no matter where you go around the world. You know, that's exactly the same thing you're doing. But I think the challenge for me was, I mean, we obviously study, for example, the Companies Act or the Income Tax Act. So the challenge for me was getting to the Netherlands, and they have obviously a different version. And for example, their tax act is all in Dutch. you know, so I had to Google translate so many things and just to understand their laws and their regulations and their legislation. But I mean, from a technical point of view, IFRS is IFRS, and yeah, audit is audit. So that was definitely not a challenge at all. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I suppose you were actually one of the only people that went to a country where they didn't speak English all the time at work. So that must have been a little odd.
Correct, but I must say they were very accommodating. I mean, when I got there versus by the time I left, you know, when I got there, most of the email communication was in Dutch. But I mean, they were slowly changing the process because there's a number of expats as well that are in the Amsterdam office. So some of the email correspondence that came out had to be both in Dutch and in English. When you talk to people and you tell them you don't speak Dutch, they very easily accommodate you and they switch to English. So I don't think the language was actually much of a barrier or much of a challenge for me. And I think the other thing is with Dutch people, they are very similar in a way to South African people. You know, they're very easygoing, super friendly. So at no point did I ever feel out of place. And I think that was one of the factors when I decided to go to the Netherlands.
Awesome. Another question I get asked often is around the BDO culture and whether it's the same or different in the different countries. I don't know, those of you that did go with BDO, if you want to just chip in and see, like, did you feel that the values that we display here and what makes up our culture in South Africa in a BDO context was the same overseas?
Cindy, to be honest, I can't say it was exactly the same. You know, to be honest, the BDO SA culture and vibe, I don't feel like you can get it elsewhere, you know. I was obviously in the Amsterdam office, and even though there were other South Africans there, it's not the same, you know. The values are the same, yes, you know, they do live by the BDO values, but in terms of the actual culture and the vibe, I cannot say it's exactly the same. Not that it was terrible or anything, but it is different and it is an adjustment, and it's something you can also learn from, you know. So you do learn a lot from the people that you work with on secondment as well.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So guys, we don't have any other questions, but what I'm going to do is just put up a thank you slide to all the students for joining us, and to our presenters, thank you so much. We've never had a webinar with so many presenters, so thank you so much for your time. I won't do the maths as to how much this has cost us in terms of your charge out rates, but thank you, we appreciate it. And to the students, please visit our website. There's a lot more information about BDO there. You can also apply online to any of the grad positions that we have available that are listed on the website. And we also have a new system, which is so great, because if you don't see a role that is applicable to you or your studies, there's a new tool that you can actually sign up for an alert. So the minute something comes up, let's say you're studying tax or any of the other courses that might become available later on in the year, you'll get an email alerting you to the fact that BDO now has a vacancy for your field. So I encourage you to do that. And yeah, all the best for those of you who are still writing, and happy holidays for the rest of the VAC for those of you who are already on VAC. So thank you for joining us, and thank you once again to all of our presenters. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Bye.